Start by briefly summarizing your education and professional background.
Sure. Well, let's start with professional background. I am the CEO of Siemens Financial Services in the Americas that runs from Canada through Latin America. We are a B2B lender for Siemens, focused on uh, products ranging from vendor finance, project finance, corporate lending, equity, and structured finance. So a comprehensive suite of products that steer into where Siemens delivers its goods and services. 90% of our products are in markets that Siemens serves. In terms of my education and background, I've been with Siemens since 2008. Joined here from Deutsche Bank, where I brought a corporate lending business and have built and expanded from there. I have a Bachelor of Arts in Economics from Drew University and an MBA from Rutgers.
All right, great. So you described your role at Siemens, but how does the financial services division fit within the company's overall larger structure? And how do either of them fit into our world here of infrastructure?
Yeah, again, I think when you look at what Siemens Financial Services offers, it's built around four pillars. One is clearly profitability. Two is diversification. So it gives Siemens breadth of product, not just in technology, but also in balance sheet capacity to support investments on behalf of our clients. And again, it steers into into the areas that matter from a sustainability perspective. I like to think of us as a sustainable lender of choice. From a project finance perspective, we are one of the biggest lenders in battery storage, in wind, in solar. So the energy transition is core to what we support. And then from the corporate side, we finance particularly small and medium-sized companies, those that make up the supply chain that supports large corporates like Siemens itself. So if you look at our customer base, you'll see lots of customers that are suppliers to Siemens. So it's not a pure captive. Diversification requires that we extend beyond just pure vendor type captive financing, but we are in the industries, the markets that Siemens cares about.
Okay, one of the specifics I'd like to discuss is something called the Decarbonization Business Optimizer, the DBO. I believe it's something that your division has created. Tell me a little bit about what that is and how it can benefit infrastructure firms and their projects.
So the DBO started really out of a request from our customers. They started, and our customers on the corporate side, where they started to get requests as part of the RFPs for a baseline of their carbon footprint. So before, where they'd be asked to meet a certain specification at a certain price, all of a sudden they started to be asked questions like exactly that, what's your carbon footprint, as companies like Siemens started to measure its scope 3 emissions, right? So we looked at how we could answer that, and one of the frustrations they had was the cost that they would have to pay through consultancy just to get that baseline. And I think what makes certainly Siemens unique is we have embedded skills inside of Siemens. So corporate technologies, as a for instance, has been our partner in developing the tool. The goal of the tool, again, is to help a company baseline its carbon footprint, create scenarios for decarbonization, and then create payback analysis so that they can understand not just what the cost is, but how they could, how they'd be able to pay themselves back over time. And part of the payback is only a small part of the story, because I think there's an opportunity cost in not confronting this challenge. And that is, if you can't satisfy the needs of your customers. So for instance, the customers that are being asked to baseline their carbon. If their carbon footprint is higher than their competitor and all other things are equal, you risk losing business, right? So there's that opportunity cost um, that companies need to confront. So it really started with how can we help our core customer base of small, medium companies? How can we leverage Siemens' internal capabilities? And then how can we bring it to market at scale? At scale, because you want this to some extent to be ubiquitous. You want everyone to have a chance to participate. And that's what that's what we went about doing. One of the challenges is always, do you have the data sets necessary to drive the engine? What's unique about the US compared to, I think, anywhere else I've seen in the world, and we've looked, is there are available data sets that help us understand load data, electricity and fuel costs, what technology costs, and the performance emissions data. The different we're using eight different data sets to power to create the outcomes that we're looking at. So number one, the data is there. Number two, it's trusted third-party verifiable data. So there's no Siemens bias in it.
Okay, so that's great. Can you tell me a little bit more about exactly what it does, and even some of the technical pieces, like what are these data sets, or any of the details of is this software, and what is this all accomplishing for those who use it in specifics, if you can?
You want to be as specific, you want to be as specific as you can. So we're looking at utility data that would look at cost, rates in the market that you operate. So the cost of utility is different in Minnesota than it is in Florida, right? So when you look at different sources, you're looking at, NREL, which is the National Renewable Energy Lab. You're looking at Comstock. You're looking at EPA data. All different sources that provide, as specific as you can for the industry or in the type of building that you have, whether it's a hospital or a commercial building or a factory, right? A manufacturing site, whether it's in the north or the south. Square footage, all those types of factors that impact what your carbon footprint would be, your utilization, your energy that you consume. So, for instance, with NREL, we use Reop Julia, the package that optimizes and utilizes a commercial solver. The calculations are based on different assumptions like technology performance, local weather, technology costs, tax rates, tax law, right? Because if we're trying to understand what payback is, then you need to understand what the taxes are and what the costs are. So it's different data that's integrated. And then we use, again, it's publicly available, so we don't have to pay for it. And we link it, we link all of that directly to the underlying sources we show inside of the DBO in our FAQ page. So, EPA, EIA estimate carbon footprint and energy costs. So all the different data sources provide different value to make a comprehensive tool.
Okay, and so those who sign up for this, and again, this is a free web-based tool, is that correct?
That's right.
And actually, but well, since I just brought that up, so it is a free web-based tool. How does what's Siemens' incentive for putting this out there for free? What are they hoping to get from this in the long term?
Yeah, everyone's looking for us in terms of how we can monetize it. I think, and I don't look at it that way. Again, when we first tried to solve the problem, it was to help our customers, and I always look at it in everything that we do, that we bring value to our customers in a consultative way. So, money is, commoditized. In some ways, certain technologies can be commoditized. And so when we look at it, I think we're looking at how can we bring incremental value to our customers so they can be successful in how they operate their business. I always think of us, no matter what we do, whether it's whether it's the capital that Siemens deploys to the technology that Siemens offers, everything we do inures to the benefit of the customer through its strategy. We're essentially investing in the future strategy of the business. And so we're not looking to monetize that. What we're looking to do is make sure that our companies survive in a time of volatility. Certainly there'll be winners and losers. Those that ignore the call to decarbonize over time will fail. There's no, we're no longer debating whether there's this need to decarbonize, whether climate change is real. Now we're moving to action at a far greater rate than we've ever seen. And so I think for us, it's traveling with our companies, our customers, and making sure that they're successful in the future. And I think off of that, if there's a benefit to Siemens, it's expanding, our base, finding more customers that we can work with. And included in that is just the ecosystem, because Siemens doesn't have, all solutions for all things, but through our ecosystem, through our partners, we can get pretty close. And I think the more we eliminate that friction between need and action, the more likely we are and our customers are to be successful, Todd.
Okay, so if someone's using the tool, they've got all the data sets that you've got in there that are open source. They plug in their location, their square footage,
Yeah,
and all the inputs that they can, and then they receive kind of like an automated, is it relatively instant an output of what their carbon footprint is? Is that basically how it
real
works?
time. I mean, it's, there's an algorithm working behind it. But you're talking within 15 minutes, you'll have an output. And you can go and adjust your variables, because you can decide you want to change your payback, right? And so you can run, multiple iterations of this to come up with different scenarios, which is great. The other thing is, if you don't know your square footage, or if you don't know your utility costs, the tool will estimate it for you. So you can get in there, you can type in your address, you'll come up with your, the footprint of your business, of your building, and you can use an estimator for the square footage. You need to know the number of floors that you occupy, and and from there, if you don't know, again, obviously, the more you have, the more accurate it's going to be. But if you don't have it, then you can go ahead and run it using estimates that are embedded in the tool.
So if someone is listening to this or watching this and they want to use this tool, what might be some things you suggest that they have ready that are often like stumbling blocks or something that people don't anticipate that they would need that might help them use the tool better on the first try?
Yeah, not a lot. I think if you can get if you know your square footage, again, if you know the number of floors, if you know your base rate, which you'd get off of any of your utility bills, that's a really good starting point. Obviously, the industry, and that matters, because a food processor is going to look very different than a hospital, than a commercial building, but that right? And so you'll go in there, and there'll be a drop down for the type of industry you're in, and that will drive some of the underlying information coming from the data sets.
Okay, speaking of the data sets, one of the terms I was not very familiar with, I'm hoping you can explain a little bit, is the Amazon Sustainability Data Initiative, ASDI. Can you describe what that is and then how it works within your tool?
I can, but remember, I'm not. Thankfully, I've got a team of engineers that support me. So, the ASDI, is Amazon Sustainability Data Initiative, and that seeks to accelerate sustainability research and innovation by minimizing the cost and time required to acquire and analyze large sustainability data sets. So, for instance, Todd, the Comstock data from NREL is hosted on ASDI, so we don't need to create different data sets. It's there, and I think that's what we're that's why AWS has been such a good partner in this project and also and across other parts of Siemens.
Okay, since that you brought it up, what is the relationship with AWS and Siemens, in particular in this partnership?
Well, I think in the broader Siemens, you'll find AWS in all different business units across the globe, from Siemens Digital Industries, where they support scalable SaaS solutions. Smart infrastructure, grid software portfolios are all supported, powered by AWS. And here, similarly, we're using it because some of their technology, specifically serverless, Todd, serverless architecture, allows us to run this with far less of a carbon footprint. In fact, using their tool or their architecture, allows. I've got to find the data. I'm sorry. I apologize.
No problem.
Allows us to be, far more efficient. I think what they say is AWS infrastructure is like 4 times more efficient than on-premise. And so we're not running it continuously. We're running it almost in what they call a Lambda function. They spin it up. So the scenarios run, then shuts down, then reruns and shuts down. So it's not running continuously, and therefore we're not utilizing energy continuously.
All right, so back to the ASDI. So that's basically whether your tool was there or not, that exists anyways, and it's holding all of the sustainability data. And yet you guys are just kind of pulling from that as one of your data sources. Is that basically how that works?
Yeah, all the data is publicly available, right? So there's nothing that we have to pay for. The data is coming from different sites, like the Department of Energy, and we link directly to the underlying data sources through ASDI.
All right, great. So moving forward a little bit, some of the things maybe coming up next. I saw a note of a vehicle fleet analyzer and a climate resiliency feature. Can you talk about those a little?
Yeah, and again, I think we want to continue to create tools off of this core engine. And so one of the requests we had was, because everything's been focused on buildings, was, is there a tool to help us understand our fleet and the carbon emissions coming from the fleet of trucks that we use, material handling and whatnot? So there's data. As long as there's data sets that we can trust, then we can build that. That will roll out right after Climate Week. So we're just about finished with that. Behind that, we have a resiliency tool. And if you look at it, and there's lots of different data, Todd, but weather events are obviously major business disruptors. I think one of the data points that I've read is a business loses 1 month of productivity every 3.7 years due to weather events. That's accelerating. And so your ability to stay resilient, your ability to stay online, to deliver and manufacture to your customers' needs and time becomes more and more critical. I was at a recent conference, and they're talking about multi-trillions of dollars by 2050 in terms of lost value due to weather events. And so what we're looking at using the tool is your business's ability to withstand those events, whether it's windows or roof or whatever. The driver of lost revenue. That's another path. So one foot's in the future. Decarbonization is how do you prepare yourself to meet the mandates, to take carbon out. The other one is to is to accept the reality that right now, until we get to decarbonization at a level that we need, 1.5 degrees or less, we're going to continue to have these type of events. And so you need 1 foot in tomorrow and 1 foot in today. And so those are the things our companies are asking us to help them with. Resiliency gives confidence of the supply chain to its customers that they can meet their commitments.
Okay, so far, what kind of feedback are you getting from the DBO? Are there things that they like about it, things that they would like to see added to it? Have you had much of that
Yeah,
yet?
I mean, I think so. We've done a slow rollout. Climate Week will be really the coming out party, but we've had really positive feedback. And I think what it does more than anything, Todd, because again, we're not looking to be the consultant on this. We're looking to help companies begin the journey. There's plenty of other Siemens has Siemens Advanta that can help. Get more specific in terms of what they can do. But I think it simplifies the process, gets people focused and started on the journey. And then how do you get to be prescriptive? Siemens has, through its offerings, the technology that we offer, solutions for lots of the needs, but not for all the needs. And I think when you look at it, we're going to drive these outcomes to Siemens Accelerator. That's something new. It's an OpenScape marketplace that will allow companies to find the products, the technologies that they need. And by it being OpenScape, it means that we can bring in partners with products that we don't have, right? To make it a comprehensive sell. So when you look at it, you need this type of tool to begin the journey. You need the technology, you need the capital. And I think that when you look at what Siemens offers, it touches on all three of those key components. I may not finance the majority of what gets, what needs are determined. That could come from a green bank in one of the states. It could come from different loan programs. It could come from community banks. Candidly, we don't necessarily care. What we care more is that, what we care more about are the outcomes. That they get the journey started and that they actually drive to change. And if we can be part of that, in whichever way we can be part of that, I think it's a success for Siemens and how Siemens positions itself.
All right, great. So if you're to directly speak to our audience, which is mostly civil and structural engineers making the designs of these
Mm.
buildings and road systems, what advice will you give them on how to use these types of tools and what they can take from them and do these jobs better and be more sustainable and have lower carbon footprints is kind of the advice portion.
It's funny. I was thinking about this actually in conversation 5 years ago. There was a battle whether climate change, when we were talking to customers, whether it was real and whether it was relevant to them. Now we're not having those same conversations. People sort of get it. Companies sort of get it. It doesn't matter what size they are. I would look to these tools. I would look to make sure that they're trusted. That's why the data underlying was so important to us, that it's not ours, it's there, it's available. Is to use tools like this to begin the process to start the journey. You're not going to be able to get to the finish line with this, but I'm hoping that this will catalyze momentum and for engineers, to look, whether it's to Siemens or to others, as their trusted partner in the journey. So I think whenever we use the tool, and we've used the tool, as I said, in pilot, it's always created the conversation. So we had an intermodal company that used the tool, found a need. We brought in Siemens Smart Infrastructure that does a lot of work with depots. And they talk about where they could customize a solution for them. So I think for me, it's get started, and don't look to solve for the 100%. A large majority of the decarbonization comes from simple things like insulation, right? So you don't need to boil the ocean. Find what is easy, start there, and then build from there.